What if you were never meant to be liked by everyone? What if the very resistance you face is the proof that you're building something real? There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that peace is not found in pleasing the crowd, but in staying true to the path only they can walk. And if you've been feeling misunderstood lately, maybe that's not your fault. Maybe that's the signal you're no longer living for approval. You're living for alignment. Across thousands of years, humans have searched for one thing more than anything else: how to handle rejection without letting it harden the heart. Ancient wisdom traditions, stretching from the deserts of Africa to the mountains of Asia, all seem to echo a quiet truth: being misunderstood is not a curse. It's often the beginning of clarity. Long before social media, long before applause was instant, there were people who chose a different kind of validation, not from popularity, but from peace. They practiced stillness before reaction. They chose to build character before recognition. And they learned that patience was not weakness, but mastery over time. One ancient text says it like this, though the source is rarely quoted directly: let your gentleness be known to all, and let the weight of your words come not from noise, but from depth. In a world that races toward visibility, these ancient ones prioritized invisibility until their presence could no longer be ignored. They knew something we often forget: you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to be rooted. So if you've been feeling like you're falling behind, like your voice is too quiet to matter, remember this: history remembers those who stood firm, not those who shouted loudest. One of the most common mistakes people make when they feel invisible is to fight for visibility, to explain themselves louder, to prove their value in every room, to post more, speak more, defend more. But the wisest traditions, passed quietly through generations, teach something radically different: don't fight to be seen, fight to be steady. Because when the world doesn't understand you, it's tempting to chase clarity from others. But true growth begins when you no longer need confirmation to remain consistent. In modern psychology, we'd call this intrinsic motivation. In ancient teachings, it was simply called character. Character doesn't announce itself. It doesn't perform, it endures. And like a tree planted in silence, it eventually produces fruit, visible to everyone, but watered in private. So when your work goes unnoticed, when your kindness is mistaken for weakness, when your ideas are met with silence, return to this wisdom: you were not born to impress. You were born to impact. And the impact doesn't always make noise when it begins. In ancient war texts, generals taught their soldiers this: hold your position until the ground beneath you is still. Translated into modern life, it means this: don't respond from the chaos. Wait until your breath returns, then move with intention. Silence, despite popular opinion, is not passivity, it is discipline. Because it takes far more strength to pause than to lash out. In every great transformation story, the hero has a moment of stillness before the breakthrough. A moment where they could have shouted, but chose to listen. Where they could have fought, but chose to observe. That pause, that moment of silence, is the difference between regret and wisdom. So the next time your silence is mocked, remember you're not losing, you're gathering power. And when it's time to speak, your voice will carry the weight of someone who chose their words, instead of reacting to noise. In today's world, fast is everything. Fast fame, fast feedback, fast results. But the most sacred traditions have always taught that speed and strength are rarely found in the same place. The slow path, it's not glamorous, it's not shareable, but it's not durable. When you build slowly, you build roots. A fast result might get applause today, but a rooted life, that survives storms. You don't need a viral moment to validate your journey. You need moments of depth that build foundation. That's why the strongest people often seem invisible at first. They're not busy broadcasting, they're busy becoming. And when the crowd eventually finds them, it's not because they chased attention. It's because their fruit became too undeniable to ignore. So take the slow path. It will cost you speed, but it will give you legacy. There was once a builder, not famous, not loud, but precise. He dreamed of building something lasting, a structure the world hadn't seen yet. Not a house, not a monument, but a system, a way of living that would make others feel safe again. But those around him didn't understand. Some envied his discipline. Others feared his vision, so they buried him, not in the ground, but in lies. False accusations, closed doors, forgotten conversations. He was pushed to the edges, silenced in rooms where he once stood tall, not because he failed, but because he threatened those who were comfortable with noise. But he didn't break. He didn't fight back with fury. Instead, he studied the silence. While they gossiped, he planned. While they climbed over each other, he laid foundation. While they demanded recognition, he built in secret. Years passed, and then the storms came. Structures built for show collapsed, and the world began to search for something steady. That's when they found the builder again. Not because he shouted, but because what he built had endured. Not because he demanded attention, but because attention came looking for substance. He didn't need revenge. He had alignment. They buried him in fear, but they didn't realize you can't bury someone who's already rooted. So what do you do when the world doesn't recognize what you carry? You pause, you breathe, and you return to the work. You remember you weren't built for applause, you were built to withstand. Let that be your mantra in this season. I am not loud because I am weak. I am quiet because I am rooted. You don't have to fight for every opinion. You don't need to win every misunderstanding. You only need to keep building, because the moment always comes when what's hidden becomes undeniable. And in that moment, you'll realize something sacred. All this time you weren't being ignored, you were being planted. And now, you're rising, quietly, powerfully, unshakably.